Hi, welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're back working on the Night Customs sandrail. There is a little bit of progress we can do. Now, anytime you're doing this kind of build, things take a lot longer as you have to kind of figure things out and looking for different parts to improve it. It's not just a turnkey solution. So a few things that I've done are I've managed to find a bar that's going to be the steering column. So I've that fitted already. I managed to pick up one of these, which is pretty rare. This is the Watanabe's Blockhead Wild One gearbox and front arms. And this is brilliant because I can fit this on this to make it look a bit more real. Yes, I could have sprayed up the other black parts, but they're never quite as good. So my plan is that we've got to swap all these out, which is actually quite a big job. And I actually now have the correct servo that is needed for this kit to fix the steering suspension problem. So I'm going to fit that as well. So we should, by the end of this video, have upgraded a few bits and pieces and fixed the steering and front suspension. Also, I fitted front scale dampers. It just looks much cleaner and much more scale. So it's coming along. There's still a load to do. Still got to find a driver, a steering wheel, the underside plate that I'm going to fit. I have actually found one of those. I just need to go and pick it up from my local hardware shop. The scale looks about right, so I need to buy one of those. Unfortunately, I have to buy a bit that long when I only really need this tiny little bit. But hey, I'll save it for something else. I think it could be used for maybe a window mesh on some other project. So let's strip it all back down again and change all the gearbox housing. Yeah.
One eternity later.
Well, that took way longer than expected, and it is really complicated because if you change anything, it impacts something else. There is very little room in the front of this car. The steering rods that come out the sides have to go through these little holes, and you've got to get them perfect. If they're tilted backwards to forwards, or when you go over suspension travel, they hit. So you've got to faff around with that. But I managed to get it reasonably dialed in. I still need to come up with a better servo horn. I've got a servo horn that goes straight down, so I've got it offset. What I really want is the square one where you can connect up the steering rods on each side, because the problem I'm having as well is the lengths of them. They're not exactly the right lengths that I need. So, but I've got them, dialed them in as close as I can get them for now, and it will steer left and right, but it tends to steer more in one direction than the other, so I need to fix that. But yeah, that took forever. Right, let's turn our attentions to the rear gearbox. Hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a faff to dismantle and put back together again. Right, let's just get on with it.
2 hours later.
So that's the gearbox changed, and yeah, it did take quite a while. Everything on this takes quite a while, and you stand back and it looks like the most simplest RC car ever, but it actually working on this is really challenging because the margins of what you're trying to achieve with what you have available, unless you've got a 3D printer or something like that, it makes it much harder to actually source a part that does exactly X, Y, and Z in that space with that distance. So these kind of kits do take a lot longer, and it's a much longer process than just bolting it together. This is not turnkey by any chance. So on the next episode, we're going to do the under tray because I think I found one of those. Got to get a steering wheel, got to find the driver. I'm not quite sure what I've done with him. He's got to be around somewhere. So we've got to get him lined up. We might have to cut him and modify him to get him to sit correctly. Then we'll take it out for a bit of a blast as it's pretty much now fully functioning. And then we're going to do more detail, all the engine wiring, and we've got to do a few more wiring. I've managed to get an extension for this one, so we've got to run this all the way down the side to try and hide it as best as possible because I don't want any wiring to show. Now, there is a way that we can do that by actually putting this junction underneath the pedals and then running it down the side. So the front servo will look pretty clean and simple, so that's pretty cool. Right, after that, well, we've got to turn our attentions back to the Brat as the weather has turned really rubbish in the UK, so painting this up properly has been a bit of a challenge, which is why I stopped doing that and jumped onto this. But we'll go back onto that now as it seems to have finally stopped raining. Another thing that just came in is my OT66 tyres. These are Replica tyres for the Optima Mid Turbo or Optima Mid, whichever one you want to paint it up, that's coming out. But unfortunately in the UK, it's delayed. So we'll have to wait on that one.